Hi there, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'll give you a sneak peek into my world, who I am, a bit about my past, and my ongoing quest to master my mind. Spoiler alert. It's a work in progress. So, here's the deal. I'm not going to give you a step-by-step guide on how to practice. Trust me, it's much better to find a teacher in person who can really guide you. I can share my own journey, but I can't exactly walk you through every detail from start to finish. Just picture me as your friendly neighborhood guide on this wild path. There have been a few misadventures along the way. So, if you're ready to join me for this ride, let's get started. It's interesting how the teachings in our sacred texts shape our practice. While some people might focus on sitting in meditation or chanting sutras, as they do in other Buddhist schools, that's not really our main focus here. Instead, we see breathing exercises and mindful walking as tools to help us cultivate a peaceful mind. They're not the end goal. Our real aim is to develop insight that leads to liberation, and that's where the magic happens. When we channel our energy into understanding ourselves better, we naturally find that sense of calm and contentment. It's all about looking around, reflecting on our experiences, and gradually letting go of those negative emotions and desires that can hold us back. As we do this, both our minds and bodies start to feel more stable and at ease. It's a journey of growth, and each step brings us closer to a more serene and fulfilling life. Isn't that a beautiful path to be on? There are 8 levels of the Noble Eightfold Path, which are practiced step by step. I am currently working my way up from the basics, and I am in the process of practicing the 4 right efforts. Right now, I'm a layperson focusing on practicing the 5 precepts at home, while monks have their own specific ways of doing things. I'm following 5 precepts includes no killing, stealing, harmful speech, sexual misbehavior, and use of intoxicants. Every day I use the 4 right efforts, which practice to prevent the evilness and eliminate the evilness, give rise to the goodness and develop the goodness within me, and the 4 immeasurable minds, which help me develop love and compassion for others. Let's take a moment to talk about the 5 big things that seem to rule our lives: money, beauty, fame, food, and sleep. These are the 5 pleasures we often find ourselves chasing after, right? It's like they're on a constant loop in our heads, making us want more and more. Honestly, can anyone really escape this cycle? If we're not craving one thing, we're usually longing for another. Just think about it. When we want something, it's hard to shake off that desire. It's almost like a game of whack-a-mole. If we're not focused on one thing, another one pops up right away. It's tough to break free from these pleasures. We dive headfirst into our wants, and while getting what we desire can feel like winning the lottery, missing out can feel like getting hit by a wave at the beach, unexpected and a little overwhelming. Let's take money, for example. If we want it, we have to hustle. We're all about those late nights and early mornings, and coming up with wild schemes just to pay the bills. It's not easy, but hey, it can be a bit of a thrill ride, right? Sometimes we even have to face some serious challenges, like working hard for our dreams and hoping that one day it'll all pay off. And when we finally start to see some success, it doesn't mean we're out of the woods. Just because we're sitting on a nice chunk of change doesn't mean we're free from worry. There's always that little voice in our heads saying, "What if I lose it all?" It's like we're always on guard, fear theft or bankruptcy, ready to steal our money. Then there's the whole idea of sleep. Sleeping too much can really turn you into a professional couch potato. Picture a student who spends more time in bed than at their desk. When class rolls around, they're likely dreaming about pizza instead of focusing on the lecture. Or consider that employee who works a full 8 hours but then takes a 4-hour nap. When they finally wake up, they're so groggy that all they can do is mindlessly scroll through social media, trying to remember if it's still lunchtime or if they missed dinner. Instead of feeling refreshed and ready to tackle the day, they're stuck in a fog, their brains moving at a snail's pace. It's like they've hit the snooze button on life. With all that extra sleep, their motivation dips, and they end up feeling lazy and unproductive, as if they're stuck in a never-ending loop of binge-watching bad TV shows. So, while sleep is essential, too much of it can leave you feeling like a sluggish sloth instead of an energized go-getter. Sometimes when we chase after pleasure too much, we end up feeling totally wiped out. Our brains turn to mush and suddenly we're stuck in a Netflix binge, wondering why we can't find the motivation to get off the couch. It's funny how those desires can lead us to feel less alive, right? When we're too focused on fulfilling our desires, we risk losing sight of what truly matters. In the end, while pursuing these pleasures can bring us moments of joy, the journey can be a bit of a roller coaster. Finding a balance between enjoying life and not getting swept away by our cravings might just be the secret sauce to lasting happiness. So, let's embrace the ride, have a laugh, and remember that it's all part of this crazy adventure we call life. You know what? I really love good food, like really love it. So, surprise, I've packed on a few extra pounds. And let me tell you, my body is sending me some serious, what are you doing, vibes. I'm feeling a bit sluggish and honestly it's like my energy just hit the snooze button. And my cravings have been on the rise lately. I found myself wanting to try more dishes and eat even more, all just for that delicious moment of flavor. Feels a bit like I'm becoming a slave to food. But deep down, I know I'm getting greedier little by little. Few years ago, I felt like I'm working just to survive instead of actually living. I refused to be a money slave, trading my health and sanity for a paycheck. I mean, when the time comes to say goodbye and pass away, are we really going to take our riches with us? Nope, that stuff stays here. This whole situation has got me thinking. I need to switch things up. Sure, I'll still enjoy my favorite dishes, but I also have to make time for exercise and self-care. Life is too short to spend it chasing after dollars while neglecting my well-being. Instead, I want to embrace every moment, have a laugh, and take care of myself. After all, I'd rather be a happy, healthy foodie than a burnt-out cash cow, right? I'm currently on a journey of practicing vegetarianism, and it's not something I'm forcing myself to do. Instead, it comes from a deep awareness of the suffering that animals endure when they're turned into food. This realization really hit me, and it made me want to make a change. For me, this isn't just about what's on my plate. It's about developing a sense of love and compassion. Every time I choose plant-based meals, I feel like I'm taking a small step toward being more mindful of the world around me. It's my way of expressing care not just for animals, but also for the environment and my own health. Next, let's talk about hatred. When anger shows up, it creates all sorts of obstacles in our lives. These challenges lead to division not just between people but also between us and the animals around us, and even between ourselves and the events happening in our lives. This division ultimately results in a loss of love and connection. Now think about it. When love is present, things change. We stop focusing on who's right or wrong. Instead, we start feeling compassion and empathy. We find ourselves looking at others with kindness and appreciation. In those moments, the barriers that separate us, whether between individuals, humans and animals, or even ourselves and our experiences we face, begin to break down and just fade away. When those walls come down, our minds become clear and free. And when our minds are free, guess what? Hatred simply starts to disappear. In simple terms, where there's anger, love struggles to exist and thrive. But where there's love, anger just can't stick around. It's as if love is a warm light that dispels the shadows of anger. In fact, the heart of compassion is the best medicine for healing anger. When we cultivate that loving energy, we not only nurture ourselves but also create a ripple effect that can transform our relationships and our world. So let's embrace compassion and watch how it changes everything. You know, when it comes to people, it's a bit like cooking. You can't just toss your own favorite ingredients into someone else's pot and expect it to taste the same. We all have our own flavors, and judging others from our own perspective can lead to some pretty spicy misunderstandings. Imagine looking at a dish that someone else made and declaring it bad, just because it's not your style. But hey, to them that dish is a masterpiece. Just like how opinions about what's right or wrong, pretty or ugly, can vary wildly from person to person. Instead of jumping in with our opinions like we're the judges on a cooking show, why not take a step back and consider the whole recipe? Every action has its ingredients, its background. If we look at people and situations through the lens of cause and effect, we start to see the bigger picture. This approach isn't just about being nice. It's about realizing that everyone's cooking up their own unique life story. People who often get angry tend to be quite stubborn. When someone expresses a different opinion, they can flare up almost instantly, sometimes even directing that anger at themselves. It's as if their pride and need to be right take over, turning simple disagreements into major confrontations. Anger often stems from a competitive mindset, where they constantly measure themselves against others. This need to win can cloud their judgment and lead to irrational behavior. When someone is consumed by anger, they can resort to all sorts of negative actions. At a lighter level, they might just feel frustrated and irritable. But when that anger escalates, it can manifest in yelling, insults, or even physical aggression. In the most extreme cases, unchecked anger can drive a person to commit heinous acts, even harming others. It's a slippery slope, and once that anger takes control, it can lead to devastating consequences. Understanding this can help us recognize the importance of managing our emotions. Rather than letting anger dictate our actions, we can strive for patience and empathy. After all, the world can be a much kinder place when we choose understanding over confrontation. Have you ever noticed how quickly anger can pop up in our daily lives? Just think about driving. 1 minute you're cruising along and the next someone cuts you off. Suddenly your blood is boiling, and you're shouting at your steering wheel like it's the car's fault. Or how about scrolling through social media? You stumble upon a post that rubs you the wrong way, and before you know it, you're in the middle of a heated comment battle. Family gatherings can be a real treasure trove of tension too. You can almost set a timer for when someone brings up that touchy subject that sends Uncle N and Aunt Hoa into a full-blown debate. Even at work, a simple disagreement in a meeting can turn into a shouting match instead of a productive conversation. And let's not forget the drama of sports rivalries, where fans can go from cheering for their team to throwing insults like it's part of the game. These moments remind us how easily anger can take over, but maybe we can find a way to laugh it off instead. After all, life's too short to let little things get us all riled up, right? Every day I make it a point to nurture my ability to love more deeply. It's like a little project I've taken on for myself. I remind myself to be mindful of my actions, whether I'm walking down the street, sitting quietly, or even just chatting with friends. I try really hard not to unintentionally hurt any creatures around me, no matter how small. It's a simple thing, but it's amazing how often we forget that even the tiniest actions can have an impact. When I speak, I aim to be gentle. It's all too easy to let frustration slip into our words without even realizing it. Have you ever felt a wave of regret when you see the shocked look on your parents' faces after you've snapped at them? I've found that pausing to think before I act can make a huge difference. And when anger starts bubbling up, I take a deep breath and remember the idea of cause and effect. I visualize my anger as this burning flame, and I realize that all it does is create suffering for myself. Who wants to feel like they're on fire, right? I'm also learning to love myself more in the process. It's a journey for sure. When someone throws harsh words at me, instead of reacting, I try to remind myself that they're probably grappling with their own pain. I mean, think about it. Who's truly happy and full of love when they're shouting and spreading negativity? It's a tough pill to swallow, but I get it. I always try to remind myself to be kind and to show love to everyone and everything around me. But let's be honest, I can easily forget and end up acting on instinct, which sometimes brings out that anger or greed I'm trying to keep in check. After those moments, I take a step back and do some self-reflection. I tell myself to be more careful and to make sure I'm not hurting anyone. It's a work in progress, but I'm getting there. Every little step counts. I tell myself it's okay to take it slow. Bit by bit, day by day, I'm working on this. I encourage myself to keep pushing forward, to keep growing. It's not always easy, but every time I choose compassion over anger, I feel a little lighter. And in the end, that's what it's all about. Finding joy in the journey and learning to love a little more each day. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. I hope you found some inspiration and insight that you can carry with you. Remember, the path to peace is a personal one, and I'm grateful to have shared a bit of mine with you. Take care of yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, stay mindful and keep exploring.